Okay, you should be seeing my screen. The safety performance across the industry, we bear a disproportionate share, and that's borne in the numbers. The total recordable incident rate for U.S. contractors in the last 10 years has remained kind of flat. And then when you look at the fatality rate since 2010, it's also remained flat. So one could argue these two charts alone are enough of an argument to say, hey, it's time to do something different, but there's more. 6% of workers in the U.S. workforce work in construction, but they, as Sanjeev mentioned, bear a disproportionate share of all fatalities. They bear 17% of the fatalities. So you're 3 times more likely, basically, to be killed working in construction than any other, or the average of all the other careers that you could choose coming out of school. But enter technology here, right? So let's take that and contrast that to technology. And technology 10 years ago, if you can remember that far back, it's changed so much. You probably bought your first iPhone 4 and put your BlackBerry away in a drawer somewhere. You were watching movies on DVD still, right? The first iPad came out. I started playing Angry Birds, which was really popular, and Instagram wasn't even heard of yet. So in 10 years, technology has come so far. And so the point of this is that construction performance is stagnated despite significant change in technology. And I'm here today to explore a little bit of why. My name is Tim Gattie, as Sanjeev mentioned. I'm with smartvid.io. My background, 20 years in the industry, as he mentioned, and I graduated from the University of Pittsburgh. Now the job I worked in operations almost my entire career in construction, and the job in the upper left-hand corner was where I had an idea to combine 2 of my passions. One was building and safety, and the other was technology. And I did that in a way that I could use technology to help improve safety performance. I had an incident on the job that day, and it started me thinking, and I went on a long journey, which still continues today. And along that journey, I developed an application called Sunt Construction Analytics. And this is when I had some time. I was working at Sunt Construction here in Phoenix. I developed a system to collect safety data, to combine it with other sources of data that we already collected as a company, and then built a predictive model on top of that data. And we predicted incidents using that model and reduced our recordable incident rate significantly. And when I saw the power of that system, I said, man, I've got to do something with this. Now that I know this can be done, I want to go out and do something with it. And so that's how I arrived at SmartVid, where we're using AI to improve safety, quality, and productivity. So I'll talk a little bit about the challenges facing our industry, and then put the backdrop of how SmartVid is helping the industry come along in regard to those challenges. So back to that original question was, why are we struggling? It's in my view, after working with a bunch of different companies' data, and I've had the opportunity to work with dozens of them. My view is that we have a challenge collecting first off, and connecting our data. It's just like Sanjeev said in his opening. We collect data in different disparate sources, and then they don't talk to each other. And in general, it seems that we've yet to learn the value in doing that. So just a warning about me, I'm a bit of an analogy guy. I love to talk in analogies, and sometimes I switch seamlessly between reality and analogy all the time. So bear with me, and hopefully these are entertaining. But to draw an analogy here, I like to compare data to rain. And this is how most contractors view data. It's costly and time consuming to handle rain. It slows down our productivity. And once it's gone off the site, you never see it again. Rain's a nuisance that gets in our way. It grinds our progress to a halt. And our job is to gather it up and get it off the job site as quickly as we can, so we can get back to work. And then once we do, once the data is collected, we usually keep it in separate, segregated places or sources, so that the data sources don't mix together, or the water doesn't mix together. So when it comes to data, this is a really, really bad thing. You want your data to be able to talk to itself or talk to one another. So now some background on predictive-based safety. What if we change the way we look at our data and how we apply that data to safety? What would that look like? That's really what predictive-based safety is. In the future of work, we're going to rely much more heavily on the opinions, quote unquote, of algorithms. And as we continue to trust the results from those algorithms, we're going to continue to grow more and more reliant on them. And safety really isn't an exception. So safety programs of the past really relied on compliance and behavior, which are not necessarily bad or off the mark. But we started with safety compliance, which was there were rules and we had to follow them, and we asked everybody to do that. And typically we punished them or sanctioned them if they didn't. We soon learned that behaviors drove action, and we developed a more sophisticated program called behavior-based safety, which really is where it's the state of the industry today. Most firms run a behavior-based program where they collect observations and they use that data to generate initiatives and involve workers in solving issues in the field. And this has been pretty successful. It's brought our recordable incident rates down from in the teens down to where they hover today as an average industry. We're about 3.0. But predictive-based safety can take us further. When you use the hallmark traits that a behavior-based safety program has in involving workers in the solution and developing a culture, and you add a layer of data and analytics to that, you get what we call predictive-based safety. It requires all the behavior-based safety techniques. It just changes a few things, and it changes the focus to data and worker behavior. It also relies on a broad base of observers. So if you've only got a few folks on your job doing observations, predictive-based safety tends to require a broader base of observers. Just the history of how these programs came to be. Predictive-based safety hasn't been available widely until recently, and that's mainly because of those advancements in technology. You couldn't build a predictive model as a deployment for just the average Joe here until recently, and so now that we need to deploy those tools at places where they can be effective. So now that we've covered all about predictive-based safety and defined it, I want to kind of share a little bit about what it looks like. So on a weekly basis, this guy, we're going to call him Jim. He's our fictitious safety manager, and he administers the predictive-based safety program on a job site. His job is to make sure that all of the supervisory staff are going around doing their observations and engaging with the craft workforce, talking to them about their safety and collecting the data that goes along with those interactions. And then through these interactions, Jim and his team are driving those craft workers to make better choices and be more safe. But they're also collecting that needed data that I mentioned. That data, along with other sources of companies' information, are fed into a predictive model. And every week, typically on Sunday, the model produces new predictions for the coming week. So Jim goes to his dashboard. He looks at his job on the dashboard, and he sees that he's got several reasons or several insights the model's producing for him on why their job is most likely to have an incident in the coming week. So he reviews that project rank, he reviews the reasons why, and then most importantly, in the upper right, he reviews what risk mitigations the model is telling him he can take. So he takes those risk mitigations to his all hands meeting in the morning on Monday, and he shares those with the crew along with all the other stuff he talks about today in his current way of doing things. And then as a result, they choose to perform some additional safety observations earlier in the week to make sure that they're bringing up the engagement level. They've also received some discretionary safety support from the head office so that they can help reduce that risk of a chance of an incident. And then, just to contrast this with how things work in today's world, when I was a project manager, I never got an additional resource until after I had an incident. So if you think about it, what we're doing is reversing that trend. Is you get your support before you have the incident to help hopefully prevent it, rather than after the fact to figure out what the heck went wrong. And that's just really a different approach. Using this, when this is effectively deployed by contractors, you can lower your recordable incident rate by 60%. So how does some of these models and how does some of this stuff behind predictive-based safety work? I think giving everybody a level set of what AI and ML or artificial intelligence and machine learning are is always helpful. That will help you understand how some of the algorithms work later on here. But basically, artificial intelligence is any computer making human-like type decisions. Examples of it are problem solving, classification, and learning. When you get a little deeper into it, there's machine learning, and machine learning is a much more narrow focus of AI. It's a subset of AI, but it's still AI. And it involves things like computer vision, natural language processing, and predictive modeling. But what about the types of predictive models? What are these things I keep hearing about, right? Well, there's several types, and I'll just go through a few of them, but we start with descriptive analytics, which are basically they take your data and they spit it back to you and maybe do some summing and some calculation. And those are called descriptive analytics. These are the reports that we're all used to. They're based on hindsight. They look backwards at the numbers. Predictive analytics take a look at what will happen. So they give what's called insight. And they give you that calculation. So if we look at maybe the question of which project is most likely to have an incident, it will give you that list of projects. The trouble is they're limited in the action orientation, right? They can only tell you what they think is going to happen. They don't give you reasons why. And that's where prescriptive analytics come in. They answer the question, how do we make it happen, or how do we prevent it from happening? And they provide something called foresight. Generally at SmartVid.io, we're trying to build prescriptive analytic models. To relate models, another analogy here, to relate models to something we can all understand, I've picked a tree, all right? So a tree is the model, and a tree can't survive without nutrients. So it needs nutrients from the soil, and we'll call nutrients data, right? But it won't survive on soil alone. I'm a terrible gardener, and I know I've tried to plant a tree before, and I've failed miserably. And part of that is because of the process behind it that's needed to get the nutrients out of the soil, using water on a regular, timely basis, right? And so you need water, you need data, you need soil to get a tree to grow. And in order for you to get real good predictions off your tree or fruit from your tree, you need to do those things in a timely fashion, in the right fashion. Said another way, looking at this in terms of a deployment, it takes people, process, and technology to overlap in the right way, in the right amount, in order to have a successful model deployment. So how are we using AI in construction safety? Let's take a look at the different types of applications. So here at SmartVid, we use 3 different applications of AI. We use it for computer vision modeling. We use it to help enhance data collection, and then we build predictive models. And as I mentioned, we do offer a product in each of these areas. It just so happens. Using AI, we're as close as we can get to something for nothing when we use imagery. Sanjeev said 95% of our data in construction goes unused. This is exactly what our safety monitoring product is trying to do. It's using something that you don't typically use, and it's gaining value from that something. So meet VINNIE. He's our AI. Just like IBM has Watson or Amazon has Alexa, we have our VINNIE guy, and he's named after a superintendent in New Jersey. And VINNIE's the AI engine behind all that we do. He's great at finding people in construction, workers. We had to prove how good he is. And so we had a bake-off against Google, and we found that he was about 4 times better than Google at identifying a construction worker, just because he's been trained on over 15 million images of construction. So you've all been looking at this picture for a little bit, and you probably see 5 workers, but VINNIE sees 6. He can identify every person or any person from a piece of their shoulder, a hand, or edge of their hard hat. And so I remember I said it's like getting something for nothing, right? So we use VINNIE to analyze progress photos that you're already taking. We're not asking you to take additional photos. We just analyze the photos you already have. So here comes another test. I'm going to let you have a few seconds to look at this image and try to determine how many folks are in this picture as it loads here. I'll give you a few seconds, and I'll just mention that Vinnie's already calculated everybody. He's identified everybody, and he's calculated a whole bunch of factors about this image. If you missed it, there's 11 folks in here, and if you missed it, it's not a big deal. Most people miss this person up here on the balcony, or they miss this guy down here in the lift. So if you only came up with 9, that's okay. Vinnie saw 11. But this is what computer vision can do. It can identify things that we as humans have a hard time doing. But he sees a lot more than just people though. And by the way, he does break down their PPE. But he sees a lot more than that. He sees folding ladders, he sees housekeeping issues, standing water, different types of equipment on job sites, so that we can derive statistics and metrics from the imagery. And a lot of people ask if VINNIE works on video, and the answer to that is yes. So in fact, we're training VINNIE to detect distance between workers and equipment to determine which workers are at risk. So in this example, you have folks that are encroaching in red, folks that are safe in green, like operators and people that are out of encroachment zones. And then the 2 pieces of equipment are highlighted in yellow and blue. And you'll see that as this piece of equipment, as the skid steer pulls away, that the folks standing there in the parking lot, they turn green as they get outside of the encroachment zone. And that can be customized or changed based on the type of equipment. So the way the VINNIE works is that he goes into the different systems that collect your visual or other type of data, and he gathers that data. We have a great integration with Procore, where if you decided you wanted to be on the platform here today, you could actually be set up and running in about 90 seconds using the integration that we have with Procore. It's amazing. And so the data comes out of those integrations, out of those other those partner applications. He gathers the video and photo data, analyzes it, and then does 2 things with it. He generates reports, metrics, and dashboards. And then using our custom workflows, he also can create automatic safety observations, similar to those that are made by humans. The reports, metrics, and dashboards can be scheduled. The reports can be scheduled. They can be automatically generated, or they can be generated on demand. Dashboards display the results. So we build metrics off the tags that we see in the photos, like work at height, ladder's last ratio, slips, trips type metrics, and PPE compliance. And the scores are custom weighted based on your preference. On the observation creation side, so right along human beings, VINNIE's entering observations into the observation software. He's like an extra safety manager, kind of roaming your job site, making these observations, and these observations go to your dashboard for observations. And then to get to the heart of the topic of future work and the COVID message that we're all part of today, and I mean, heck, it's even changing my hairstyle. It's affecting everything, right? So when the pandemic hit, we took a long look at, hey, how can we help keep projects open? That's the most important thing. And one of the best ways we can do that is by helping contractors identify workers who are working in large groups, who are not evaluating or observing social distance practices, or who are not wearing face masks and gloves. And we've got models that can tell us all of that. And so we've deployed this on several contractors' job sites to help them make sure that they're meeting all those requirements. And it ties into our observation platform so that you can trigger an alert, get an assigned observation, and take care of the issue right there. And then we've also built automatic reporting so that all the reports, all the reporting requirements that are out there now are satisfied through just the simple observation reporting that we've built. And the outcome of this is that we're hoping to give both the workers and employers peace of mind to get back to work, keep their job sites open, and adapt to our new normal. And we'd love to be part of your COVID-19 prevention plan. So we're offering free trials to the COVID-19 this module of the software, and you can reach out to me afterwards if you're interested in that. The second area of AI in construction is enhanced data collection. So when you begin with the end in mind, you build something different. So we started from scratch with our observation platform, and when you start with the end in mind, you tailor that software just slightly different, and it makes data collection different. When your models are consumed, when your data is consumed by AI, and when you're using AI to generate data, you just tune it a little bit differently. This is a list of common data issues, and Sanjeev kind of talked about this in the start. This is a list of common data issues we see generated by the tools that are out there on the market. And some of these are more severe than others, like missing data and master data sync issues. If you can't link your data together, then it can't be used. It can't be used outside of the tool that it's already in. So the basic essence of this is that when you build an application to consume AI, you approach the data collection differently. So some of the features that we built that are different in our observation tool that we started from scratch, or that it's collecting data from VINNIE, the AI. It's also putting it in a source, a saved environment where it's AI ready. So it's immediately able to be plugged into a predictive model and be consumed by AI as well. We have master data sync. It's a completely configurable application. The results are AI ready, like I mentioned. You're able to assign, track, manage, and respond to all alerts within the mobile or the desktop interfaces. The mobile is our primary way of obtaining data, but for those of you out there who are more comfortable at desktop, there's a fully functional desktop interface. And then finally, the observation dashboards help convey performance. It promotes predictive-based safety through data transparency. And most importantly is that they give you access to your data through our API so that you can use them for your own analytics internally or data warehousing. The final area of AI in construction I wanted to talk about was predictive models. So unlike groundhogs and other prophets, our predictive models are built to stick around. I love that little guy. So predictive analytics, the module uses inputs from a variety of sources, including safety observations and safety monitoring. And it layers this information, these types of data on top of each other. And this graphic, if this doesn't illustrate why it's important that your data sources talk to each other, I don't know what will. So let's talk a little bit more about how these models are built. So predictive models are built on the base of your good data, and good data means that it's consistent and uniform, and it uses a consistent process and by people that are trained to collect the data. On top of that data, we build features from layering different sources and systems together. And then the models consume those features to solve for a target variable. We've broken down the model building process into 3 different phases. And the reason we've done that is because not everybody has the data that will support building a predictive model. But it's also interesting to learn what is lacking and how you can improve it so that you can take another whack at it in a few months after you're able to remedy those issues. So we start with a phase 1, which is a data health check. We check the data and give you feedback on what's good, what's bad, what's exceptional, how good the quality and consistency of the data is, and whether or not we feel it can build a model. At the end of phase 1, if you're satisfied that your data is good, then we can go forward to this model testing, wherein we build a model on top of the data. We test the accuracy of the model, look for prediction lift, we call it, and then kind of identify the features that are really driving it, so that while you may give us a ton of different bits of information in phase 1 to trial, we may only need a portion of those to actually run your model. Then at the end of phase 2, if you're satisfied with the outcome of the results and we think that we can build a deployment, we'll go forward with that, and we'll build all the data connections and feeds and prepare the user interfaces. And then importantly, we train users on interpretation of model results, because these are not reports, right? These are forward-looking results that need to be understood slightly different. in a slightly different way. The most common model by far that we build is which project is most likely to have a safety incident in the coming week. That model produces project risk rankings, predictive insights, and then also provides risk mitigations. This is a prescriptive model from that set of types of models that we talked about earlier. And then finally on the accuracy of the model, we like, talking about predictive model accuracy is really weird because numbers lie and liars use numbers, right? Or whatever that saying is. We like to boil it down to something that we can understand, that we can convey to customers. And that is basically, if you have a list of 60 active projects, our most accurate models can whittle that list of 60 things to worry about down to about 9. And that's where the power of this analytic comes in, is that you can apply discretionary resources ahead of time to those 9 projects and help prevent those incidents. I hear the safety managers out there, like every time I say something like that, they're like, that sounds awesome. 51 fewer things to worry about. And again, as these are deployed effectively, we can reduce recordable incidents by 60%. So that wraps up the use of AI in construction. And as I conclude, I wanted to share a couple of additional thoughts. We started out in the beginning with construction has a challenge of collecting and connecting the data, and we need to do a better job of that. But I believe that through change, we can be a leader in collecting and connecting data, and that comes through the use and deployment of other technologies. To learn more about predictive analytics and AI, I'm going to provide a few resources on these coming slides. SmartVid.io does do predictive analytics assessment. So if you go to our smartvid.io website and use the /predictive on the end of that, you'll get to the assessment page. This is just kind of a cursory overview of whether or not you have the data to produce a model that you're interested in producing. And that can be in the area of risk, like safety, or in quality or productivity. In addition, in the handouts, you'll see a white paper, and that white paper was produced by the Predictive Analytics Strategic Council, and SmartVid is a co-founding member of that organization. We've got 18 contractor members, and we're growing. We were the Construction Dive 2019 Innovation of the Year. And you can contact Predictive Analytics Council at info@pask.ai or visit the website www.pask.ai. The white paper, by the way, does introduce the concept of sharing widely predictive analytic outputs and how to deploy predictive models within existing systems inside of construction companies. So it's aimed right at the audience that we're talking to today. And then the final nod to the tree analogy, one of my favorite quotes is, best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time is today. So if you haven't started your predictive journey, there's no better day than today. And then finally, I'm grateful to the CanBIM organization for welcoming me today, for Sanjeev for the great introduction. It'd be my pleasure to talk with more of you about what we're up to over here at SmartVid.io. You can reach me at tgattie@smartvid.io.
Thank you, Tim. Can you hear me, Tim?
Sure can.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great presentation. I love your analogy of the tree. I think it's a pretty cool way to put it all together. But what an exciting time for folks, especially in safety, to be proactive, right? Just to go to the job and kind of be mindful of the things that they need to watch out for executives to kind of focus on projects that need more attention. This is so cool because it just improves our safety. So I got one question here. Can you elaborate on how video cameras work? Specifically, what is the range? What are the logistics in setting up cameras for a high-rise project? So this will probably be along your visual documentation, I gather.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, most of our data comes in through camera phones, like iPhones. We gather most of the imagery that we analyze through those devices, though we accept imagery from almost any camera. And we're also not looking for a new stream of data. So we're looking at your progress photos and not just like new imagery that you're creating or you're sending somebody out to take specifically for SmartVid. this is trying to tap into existing streams of data. But we do, as I mentioned in there, we do offer the ability to tie into camera systems, and those are kind of like a custom layout for depending upon your project. A lot of us have found that as we deploy cameras on jobs and they're fixed cameras, the day after we put a fixed camera in place, then we build a wall in front of it, right? So we like to work with you to identify the best location that's going to give you longevity. But the great part is that our partner Minuteman, they resell Axis cameras if you're going to use fixed cameras, that is. They have a portable camera that can be moved and deployed in different locations throughout job sites. But again, it doesn't require a fixed camera. It's fine if that's what you have. We can tie into that for sure.
Folks, if there's any more questions, please go ahead and type them in. We'll be happy to answer them. Tim, I got a question. Like in light with the pandemic, I want to talk about your visual documentation outside your safety and prediction. But it's so cool that one person can go in and check check everything on behalf of so many others, especially in terms of social distancing. How's that been working out for you? I imagine you guys have been busy like no other time.
Yeah, we've actually had some people. I mean, they've really grabbed onto this and run with it. We have a company in Pennsylvania that's taken off with the COVID-19 solution, and they're using it on every job. They're monitoring it, and they've even told us that they were on a webinar with us recently, and they told us that they're using it in a way to get more work. Because owners are so concerned about a job site getting shut down because of an outbreak, they're
right.
using it in a way that helps them gain more work so that they can, they can leverage it and grow because they've adopted it earlier than some of their competitors.